Welcome to the Undiagnosed Day.
2024.
Yes. And we would like to celebrate the undiagnosed diseases and the undiagnosed community. Today we know that 350 million people worldwide living with an undiagnosed disease. And children, and 70% of them are children. And we know also that undiagnosed are left behind. But together today we hope that we can show that we are many who are working to solve the undiagnosed diseases.
And we know that today we can solve 40% of undiagnosed diseases through the most modern technologies we do have, but we don't think that's enough because it leaves 60% undiagnosed. So we want to turn those percentages around and solve 60% instead, and we hope to be able to accomplish that in not too far of a future.
And I would like to welcome our keynote speaker, Domenica Taruscio from Italy. Welcome, Domenica, and welcome all the speakers and all the audience. Welcome.
My name is Domenica Taruscio. I'm a medical doctor and I'm a UDNI board member. I'm also the former director of the National Center for Rare Diseases at the Istituto Superiore di Sanità in Roma, in Italy. I give this presentation on behalf of all UDNI members. UDNI is a network, an international network totally dedicated to undiagnosed diseases, which has been established in 2014, and the goals are to work in collaboration at international level to provide diagnosis to persons without diagnosis, to gain insights into the etiology and pathogenesis of novel diseases, and to share the results across the globe. Our specific aims are described very well in our first paper, which has been published in 2015, is to improve the level of diagnosis and care of patients, to facilitate research by collecting and sharing standardized high-quality clinical and laboratory data, including genotyping, phenotyping, and also documentation on environmental exposure. So we would like really, and we are creating an integrated and collaborative community across many countries. This is a picture. Our first meeting has been organized in Roma in 2014. This was the first conference of our network. And it's an historical picture because, as you can see, we are not so many members, and I will show you the difference after 10 years. We are working in several working groups. As you can see, there are several. One is a program committee working group, communication, membership committee, functional study, data sharing, patients engagement, genetic counseling, educational working group, low middle income countries, and diagnostic working group. So please go to our website. This is the address, and explore our website, which is rich of information for the community, all community, for patients, for scientists, and for families. So please go there and visit, because there are several resources. This is, for example, last one that we created. It's dedicated to genetic counseling working group. And it's really useful, of course, for professionals, but also for patients and families. This is just a short illustration of the diagnostic working group. It's a huge working group because it involves more than 40 researchers coming from different countries, 10 different countries. And of course, the aim is really to provide support and opinion to local undiagnosed disease programs in order to accelerate diagnosis for more families, to promote discovery, and to expand global medical knowledge. Other tools are a leaflet. On your right, you see a leaflet which has just been published for the Undiagnosed Day. So please go to the website and you can download and use it. And there is also on the left, there is a poster. In brief, we describe what we do. Here you have the participants, total participants, country in our network. In 2014, we were 10 countries. In 2024, 55 countries. Altogether, now we are 161 members, coming from many, many countries around the globe. And these are the pictures of our conferences. Usually we organized one, sometimes two conferences per year, but very often one. And you can see we started in Rome, we went to Budapest, Vienna, Tokyo, Stockholm, Naples, New Delhi in India, Nijmegen, Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, Turin, Vienna, and in Georgia, Tbilisi. And in this year, we are going to Korea in Seoul. So please join us and go to the website to catch more information on this very, very interesting conference. So here you see many pictures of children. Of course, rare diseases can affect children as well as adults. And here especially you can see children. Some of them are finally, after many efforts of our community, are diagnosed. And we are quite happy, of course, as a community. So I would like to invite you to join us, to join our network. It's really interesting to work together. And thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Tikat Kemaladze and I'm from Georgia, Tbilisi State Medical University. I'm a clinical geneticist and I deal with patients, with the families. Georgia is a small country. It's small, it's beautiful, and we face challenges in regards to rare diseases. We have limited resources in Georgia in terms that we don't have sequencers, we cannot do exomes or genomes on site to carry out these investigations inside the country. But I think if you have a motivation, if you have an interest, if you have a vision, then everything is possible. And by possible, I mean we need to be open for collaboration. So what we do is that we are very open. We collaborate around the world with researchers and colleagues from Saudi Arabia, from US, UK, many European countries, also post-Soviet countries. What we do is that we share information, we share the patients, we share the data, because this is all to bring the diagnosis to the undiagnosed families. Over the last years, I'm happy to say that through such international collaborations, we managed to diagnose many families. And behind every diagnosed family, it's a small step of raising awareness. And what I'm very happy to see is that this is increase in the amount of parent organizations in the country. Every year, parents with certain conditions, they found parent societies, they advocate for the children, advocate for treatment, for follow-up, for writing the guidelines. And this has been amazing because only doctors cannot do anything. We cannot do all. We diagnose, we treat, but the backup from the parents and the society is very important. So parents in Georgia are doing amazing work in increasing the awareness and advocating for the children. And they are the most amazing parents. Well, for those who still have no diagnosis, yes, it's difficult. It's difficult when you do not know what's the cause of a condition in your child, when things are not explained, when you don't know the cause and you don't know the treatment and you don't know whether it will recur or not in the future children in the family. But we try to do as much as we can. And I would say that when we have the diagnosis, this is a hope. This is fantastic. Even if it's a severe disease, it's still good news, because when you know what it is, the doors are open, the research is open. Research in terms of the natural history studies or new drugs, or the community where a family can unite and be part of that. So how difficult it should not be, diagnosis, I would say, is always a good news for the families. It's been difficult again, and in terms of the facilities that we have. But I'm grateful to all my colleagues who help with different projects. I want to make an emphasis on a special region of Georgia, Marneula region, where historically several villages have been isolated for centuries, and what we have observed is the occurrence of certain recessive conditions in that community. And my recent research is specifically aimed to investigate children in this area, and I'm very thankful to the colleagues who support me to investigate and diagnose these families, because with such conditions, many families have several affected children, and there are so many children that die without the diagnosis, which is very sad. So I hope that with the help of the colleagues, we'll be able to diagnose this specific community and help each and entire families. And this is important not just for the families, but for the community and the society and the government as well. So I'm also thankful to the government for supporting and for caring about rare disease families, and in terms that over the last years several treatments for certain rare diseases has been implemented under the governmental supervision. So this is fantastic. So once again, I'm blessed and I'm honored to be the part of the UDNI family. I want to thank Helen and Mick, Bill, and all my wonderful colleagues, Georgian colleagues, international colleagues, for the wonderful collaboration. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Birgitte Rodines. I'm head of department here at the Department of Clinical Genetics at Copenhagen University Hospital, Rigshospitalet. I'm very happy and proud that this year we will be opening an undiagnosed disease program here in Copenhagen, UDP Copenhagen. And this is part of our efforts to take good care of the community of patients with rare and undiagnosed disorders. So hopefully making sure that each patient feels seen and heard and cared for here at our department.
Hi, my name is Sofia Hammer Hansen, and I'm a clinical geneticist. I'm part of the team that takes care of adult patients with rare undiagnosed diseases. So right now we are establishing a clinical program to ensure continuity of care for such patients. We want to make sure that they have a place for coordinated clinical management, as well as access to the newest diagnostic tools.
My name is Zeynep Tümer, and I am professor in human genetics with special focus on neurodevelopmental disorders. My role in the Undiagnosed Disease program is to apply integrative approaches to diagnose the undiagnosed patients, together with several partners you can see on the screen.
Stronger together. So please reach out to us if you have ideas or inspiration, or know of a place somewhere that has a really good clinic for patients with undiagnosed disease that we should get inspiration from. Behind us you see the QR code that shows the department webpage and the email address where we can be reached. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Emil Umaka. I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa, and I'm one of the UDNI Wilhelm Foundation Rare Diseases champion. I'm really happy to be here, and I thank the organizers for associating us once again to this Undiagnosed Diseases Awareness Day. On this Undiagnosed Diseases Awareness Day, we chose to raise awareness on undiagnosed diseases in developing countries, especially in the Democratic Republic of Congo, by presenting our reference center for rare and undiagnosed diseases. Our center is located within the University Hospital of the University of Kinshasa. Thanks to the financial support from the Wilhelm Foundation and the complement from the NIH, we were able to turn this abandoned building into a brand new facility that is home for rare and undiagnosed diseases in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It was inaugurated on the Rare Diseases Day of 2024 in the presence of the authorities of the university, parents and families of undiagnosed diseases, patients, experts in different medical disciplines that are interested in undiagnosed diseases and rare diseases. We also called the attention of the national television and other media outlets. Our center is equipped with a versatile meeting room that can serve for in-person meeting and virtual meeting, and it has been equipped with all the necessary equipment, and it also has a connection to a good internet network for this type of activity and communication with colleagues from remote locations. It's also in this room that we have our clinical discussion. We go through medical record and we have the multidisciplinary discussion of patients. Our secretary really helps in the management of day-to-day activities. We have 2 rooms that are dedicated for consultations, and they contain the necessary equipment to allow us to offer proper consultation to patients and families seeking the medical attention. This is the example of one family that we saw, and we build this infrastructure so that families can feel comfortable. They can feel home. We call this the rare and undiagnosed diseases home. It's a family place where they can find a ear that can listen to their problem. We are thinking to the future. For that reason, we have included a room or an office for the trainees. We have medical trainees, we have bioinformaticians. They are all joining us. They are working with us so that they can get trained along the process and be the next generation of rare and undiagnosed diseases fighters. This is a fight that we have get on board, but it's also a fight that unfortunately we will pass on to the next generation. The team is composed of medical doctors, most of who have a pediatric background and they have a complement in clinical genetics. But we also have colleagues that are specialists in laboratory, and we have colleagues that are helping with the administration and the management, especially of finances, as this is a key element for the good functioning or the good management of the reference center for rare and undiagnosed diseases. From this center, we have expanded across the country. We have deployed the National Network for Rare and Undiagnosed Diseases, which, thanks to the NIH-funded African Rare Diseases Initiative, is now present in 11 provinces out of the 26 of the country. This is the second biggest country in Africa. We were able to bring together in Kinshasa all colleagues from the 11 provinces so that they can be actually capacitated in clinical genetics and the basics of laboratory genetics. It was also an opportunity for us to get to know them and the working environment much better. Even though nowadays the future is scary, we are hopeful that the future will be bright as we are trying to engage with new partners to find funding to expand this center, especially by including the laboratory facility and biorepository and expanding our bioinformatic capacity to be able to safely store medical information. Thank you all for your attention and see you next time, hoping for a bright future.
Thank you for the kind invitation. I'm pleased to tell you about the situation for the undiagnosed in the Netherlands. I do this on behalf of the Dutch Alliance for Rare and Genetic Diseases, in Dutch the VSOP. VSOP is an umbrella organization for about 100 patient organizations for rare and genetic diseases. We advocate for a better situation for the more than 1 million people in the Netherlands with a rare disease, including the undiagnosed. There are more than 17 million inhabitants in our country. At this moment, there are about 350 centers of expertise in 7 university medical centers and a few top clinical medical hospitals. Without a diagnosis, it's difficult to find a center of expertise or to find the right patient organization or contact group to share information with other patients and parents. The journey to a diagnosis can be, as we all know, a long odyssey, as you can see in this infographic. Also, parents of children without a diagnosis have the same needs as parents with diagnosed children, according to this survey by the Radboud University Medical Center Nijmegen, Department of Medical Psychology. To improve the access to an accurate diagnosis, the VSOP started 2 initiatives. One initiative is the website Ziekte Onbekend for parents of children with a syndrome without a name. Ziekte Onbekend is translated disease unknown. This website includes a private Facebook group. More than 450 Dutch parents are currently active in this group, and they share experiences and they support each other. A future goal is to make this group an independent organization. The other initiative is the website Diagnose Onbekend, Undiagnosed in Dutch. This website provides an overview of the pediatric outpatient clinics in the Netherlands for children with an undiagnosed genetic syndrome. They work together as a network to share knowledge. These outpatient clinics are improving the diagnostic pathway by research and by an update on the Dutch diagnostic guideline. Another important task of the clinics is improving the organization of care. All these centers have a multidisciplinary approach. They work together on topics like how to organize the more practical issues. For example, the frequency of reanalysis and how to recontact parents and patients. These are all important topics from parents and patients' perspective. Diagnose Onbekend was originally focused on the Dutch pediatric outpatient clinic. Thanks to the hard work of Laura de Graaf from University Medical Center Rotterdam, the network of internists for adults with a genetic syndrome, including syndromes without a name, is growing. This also will result in more data on this group. The Netherlands is involved in several international initiatives for people without a diagnosis. For instance, the Radboud University Medical Center is involved in the Undiagnosed Disease Network International. The VSOP is part of the patient engagement group of this network. The VSOP is part of the European Project Jardin, the joint action to support the integration of European reference networks into national health systems, especially in the work package 7 for national reference networks and undiagnosed disease programs. In work package 7, there will be a task force building the recommendations for national patient organizations for undiagnosed patients. UDN is important because undiagnosed does not only address the children and adults with undiagnosed genetic syndromes, often called Swan syndrome without a name. According to this roadmap, the VSOP would like to emphasize that it is important to advocate for the other groups of undiagnosed children and undiagnosed adults as well. They also cannot be left behind. I hope that the Netherlands can tell you more about the joint actions, national and international, on Undiagnosed Day next year. We look forward to new valuable developments on the horizon. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Helen, and today I would like to talk to you about the R69 initiative. R69 is an ICD-10 code that means illness unspecified, and we think that it can be used to denote when someone is on their diagnostic journey. So millions of people all around the globe are on these diagnostic odysseys that we're all familiar with here at the Undiagnosed Disease Day. And there is no way right now to consistently denote someone as being in a diagnostically uncertain situation. And so we're proposing that the R69 code, which means illness unspecified, be used for such a purpose. We have 5 pillars here at the R69 initiative, and they are awareness, so spreading awareness about the R69 code, the fact that it exists already and can be used, as well as awareness of our efforts related to gathering consensus for when it should be used. The next pillar is policy, and in a few slides, I'll be able to give a specific example of some policy efforts that we're undertaking. And then practice, what we mean by practice is what tools or processes or approaches can be put into practice to improve the path to diagnosis for those with the R69 flag. So once people are flagged with R69, what comes next in practice to improve the path to diagnosis? Ultimately, where I believe technology will take us is in the proactive identification of persons for whom the R69 flag would be beneficial. And with that, with that overview, I'd like to go ahead and pass it off to Sydney, who's going to walk us through our awareness efforts.
Thank you very much, Helen. So this year I represented the R69 initiative at the Rare Disease Conference hosted in Johannesburg, South Africa. So over a period of 1 week, we shared our poster here and we shared it with people with lived experience, funders, and patient organizations and scientists attending the conference. And throughout all our interactions and presentations, we noticed that there was a general agreement on the need to find ways of shortening the diagnostic odyssey for people with rare diseases. And this was especially urgent for countries within the global south, where resources such as clinicians and facilities tend to be limited. We suggested the use of an already existing code, the ICD-10 code R69, which means illness unspecified, to denote when someone is at the beginning of their diagnostic journey, and hopefully help signpost them to the relevant resources. As a follow-up to this awareness initiative, Helen will be presenting on a panel discussion at the Rare Disease Fair this year in Northwest in the USA. Over to you, Helen.
Thank you so much, Sydney. For policy, we have done some work in the United States to address a specific policy that's described in the ICD-10-CM official guidelines for coding and reporting. There's a section in this document that describes what to do, how to code uncertain diagnoses, and there's a description of how they define uncertain diagnoses. And the coding recommendations are to code whatever condition the physician believes exists, that's what should be coded as if it exists. And what we would like to suggest, and what we suggest in detail, you can read about the proposal on the website, is to code the condition as if it existed, and additionally code with R69 to indicate that there still remains an unspecified illness. So if you're somebody that is interested in awareness of the R69 code, developing the criteria for its usage, and ways that we can leverage R69 for policy improvements and practice improvements, or if you're interested in the AI technology's ability to proactively identify people with uncertain diagnoses, please get in touch. Thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
I'm Shahida Musa, and I'm the head of medical genetics at Tygerberg Hospital in Cape Town, South Africa. A couple of years ago, I established Southern Africa's first undiagnosed disease program, and it's been running with phenomenal success. Of the over 1,000 patients and families enrolled in our UDP, 45% have gotten an answer through our undiagnosed disease program. They now have a diagnosis. There's a flip side to that coin, though. There's a flip side to that good news. That means that 55% of our patients and families are still looking for answers, are still on their diagnostic odyssey, are still undiagnosed. On the 29th of April every year, we use the opportunity of Undiagnosed Disease Day to remember these undiagnosed disease families, to commemorate them, and to celebrate them. The motto of my research group is until every African with a rare disease is diagnosed, and we take that responsibility really seriously. On the 29th of April, on Undiagnosed Disease Day, I'd like to reassure those families still waiting for answers that we will not give up until we find those answers for you. Happy Undiagnosed Disease Day, and I look forward to the day when we don't have to celebrate this day anymore, because everyone searching for answers, everyone searching for a diagnosis would have received one. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on the area of the world you are living. On this Undiagnosed Rare Disease Day, I want to thank all organizers for the opportunity they offer me to show the experience of our program called Spain UDP. My name is Manuel Posada. I am a research full professor in rare disease in Spain. I have been the director of the Rare Disease Research Institute on the Institute of Health Carlos III for more than 10 years. And I am currently a member of the board of directors of the Undiagnosed Network International, among other participation and contribution in the fields of rare diseases. I would like to highlight that I am also a family affected by rare diseases. I am the grandfather of 2 grandchildren affected with 2 different rare diseases. One affected by cystinosis, a very rare disease, and the other one affected by a major heart congenital anomaly called phallotetralogy. That say that I have 2 types of experience, one as a professional and one as a family affected by 2 of these rare, more than 8,000 rare diseases. Spain UDP was started in 2013 after observing how the demands of the patient, diagnosis patient, increased in our email, phone calls, and also through queries sent to the Spanish Federation of Rare Disease Patients in Spain, FEDER. In 2014, at the meeting in Rome, where the Undiagnosed Network International was born, we added our activities to this international network, collaborating in several of their working groups and attending their international meetings, and also in June 2023 the first of the hackathon that it was held in Sweden. Spain UDP has received and accepted cases from all patients of all provinces of Spain and also the main hospital for Spain, some of them. Our data indicates that the Spain UDP is no different from other rest of other programs in the worldwide. In this period, we received 522 applications, which 355 cases were accepted because they met criteria for being evaluated, and 212 were finally evaluated, at least with whole exome sequencing in trio, but what we consider necessary with whole genome sequencing and also RNA-seq and also functional studies. 92 disease, 43.4% of that cases evaluated were provided with a definitive diagnosis, which is very interesting. 71 of them have a negative report, but we have some candidates in for them, and we continue to be studied, and they continue to be studied in our program, and including we share the data with other experts through the MassMaker chain and the UDNI and Diagnostic Network International. Unfortunately, 49 cases don't have a definitive diagnosis, and we don't have any candidates in for them. I would like to highlight the importance of the international collaboration in the field of undiagnosed cases, both from the Undiagnosed Network International, but also from the European strategy, such as the Solve ID projects and the genomic platform of RDConnect. This collaboration have allowed us to consider more candidate genes and complex structural anomalies as a candidates for the diagnosis in our patient. We have observed also complex inheriting models where different mechanisms were combined for each allele of a gene, which they were not easy to identify in only a regular sequencing study with seizures. Spain UDP has a broad team of experience ranging from the clinical area, geneticists, and bioinformatics to functional studies capability, both in vivo and in vitro. Let me show the picture with my team. More recently, we have incorporated to these personal capabilities the optical genome mapping to be able to try to respond to these 49 cases that are still without a definitive diagnosis. Last but not least, I would like to thank organizations like the Undiagnosed Network Foundation and also the Wilhelm Foundation. Very especially to the latter for the great work they do in the Undiagnosed Network International. Their enthusiasm and finally, and their way of acting as facilitators and drivers of better results that lead us to grow in the number of diagnoses achieved in our patients. Thank you very much. Thank you for organizing this Undiagnosed Rare Disease Day. Just to say that our commitment and the commitment of the full team of the Rare Disease Research Institute for Undiagnosed Cases continues to be the same than the first day at the beginning of the program. They need all of us in our close collaboration with the UDNI. Thank you very much and have a nice, good day.
La Asociación de Enfermedades Raras de Genes de ámbito nacional nace en Tutana en el año 2008, con el fin de mejorar la calidad de vida de las personas que conviven con una enfermedad rara y sin diagnóstico,
Está compuesta por estos pacientes, sus familias, profesionales de diferentes ámbitos y personas particulares que quieren colaborar con nosotros. Cuenta con 7 centros multidisciplinares que prestan una cartera de servicios de atención directa, así como diferentes delegaciones en puntos de España que ofrece servicios de información y orientación. En el año 2018, de Genes forma el grupo de trabajo de Genes sin diagnóstico, que aglutina a familias que conviven con esta misma situación. En este marco se crean jornadas y simposios destinados a abordar los estudios que se están haciendo en esos momentos en las enfermedades sin diagnóstico, compartir experiencias y difundir y dar visibilidad a nuestras necesidades. En España, la media para encontrar un diagnóstico en las personas con una enfermedad rara es de unos 4 años. En el 20% de los casos, esta espera es de 10 o más años. Incluso hay pacientes que fallecen sin encontrar el nombre a su patología. Por eso el diagnóstico es de vital importancia, ya que es la puerta de acceso al tratamiento. Invitamos a las administraciones que articulen todo lo necesario para tener un diagnóstico precoz y encontrarlo en menos de un año. Consideramos que las familias y los afectados que no tienen diagnóstico deben de ser considerados como un grupo determinado para poder tener acceso y ser cubiertas todas sus necesidades. En España, de Genes, para celebrar el Día Mundial de las Personas sin Diagnóstico, se suma al manifiesto de la Federación Española de Enfermedades Raras FEDES para reivindicar, entre otras cuestiones, que se incorpore al sistema sanitario el código 616874 de trastornos raros de diagnóstico sin determinar, incluido en Orfanet, para poder identificar cuántas personas se encuentran en esta situación. Asimismo, ponemos de manifiesto la necesidad de que se cree un marco normativo en el que se homogeneice y amplíe las pruebas de cribado neonatal y pruebas genéticas. También pedimos que España deje de ser el único país de la Unión Europea en el que no está reconocida la especialidad de genética médica y laboratorio. En definitiva, para el futuro deseamos que se acorten los plazos en el tiempo de espera del diagnóstico, que las familias no se sientan solas y que sean cubiertas todas nuestras necesidades.
No tenemos diagnóstico, pero sí necesidades.
Hello everyone, my name's Dr. Emma Palmer and I'm delighted to be joining you from Australia to talk about our program Gene to Care, supporting our families to a timely diagnosis and wraparound care and support. I'm presenting on behalf of an incredible team of genetic counsellors, nurses and clinical geneticists. We're also lucky to be joined by medical students who are passionate about changing outcomes for people living with rare and undiagnosed conditions. The first part of our Gene to Care program is Gene Start, a rare condition registry. This so far has over 300 families enrolled. And firstly, it allows us to use the International Brains Trust. So about a third of the time, the lab reports back a change in a gene or chromosome region, and it doesn't know for sure if that's the answer for the family. Through Gene Start, we're able to connect up with international databases and collaborators, and that often leads to advances in medical knowledge, which can come back and mean we have a sure diagnosis for that family. We also know that rare conditions can be so isolating, but Gene Start helps us break down that isolation. For example, we're able to connect up families of children who have genetic epilepsies, such as little Nell here, who has a genetic epilepsy condition Cheddar, with the amazing organisation Genetic Epilepsy Team Australia, who runs family conferences, and other organisations around the world. Gene Start also helps us connect up families that are interested to research opportunities and clinical trials. And this is so important as less than 5% of rare diseases currently have a curative treatment. So this has been, for example, very helpful with our Angelman Clinic and connecting up to clinical trials for Angelman syndrome. And it's wonderful that our clinical knowledge still is building for many rare conditions, and Gene Starts helps us to go back to those families and their clinicians and update them as progress is made. For example, it's been wonderful for our Kleefstra syndrome families in updating them on new guidelines, for example, around speech and language therapy, led by Professor Angela Morgan and Lottie Morrison's team in the University of Melbourne. But on International Undiagnosed Disease Day, it's really important to recognize that still 1 in 2 individuals who we think genetic testing should find an answer are still undiagnosed after our clinically available tests. We therefore have a second part of Gene to Care, which is Gene Add, an undiagnosed disease program running across the Sydney Children's Hospital network. This enables us to reanalyze, which means relook at the clinical and genomic data. For example, here's a recent story of Lily, who through Gene Add, we were able to reanalyze her exome data and find that she had a newly described rare condition, Richter-Stintzel syndrome, type 4, and indeed had the same variant as 8 other people around the world, bringing to the end an 18-year diagnostic odyssey for her family. Gene Add also allows us to connect up directly with national and international collaborators. For example, we have been able to connect many of our Gene Add families to the Undiagnosed Disease Network Australia. And here's one where we think we've just ended a 4-year odyssey through to reanalysis of genomic data facilitated by the Undiagnosed Disease Network Australia and the Centre for Population Genomics, and matchmaking with clinician scientists in Germany who are describing a new genetic condition. We're also able to use Gene Add to provide access for our families to new technologies and functional studies. And this is often the type of new technology that's needed to bring diagnoses. For example, here long-read sequencing, which is a very new type of genomic sequencing, has been able to show and demonstrate a complex rearrangement in the chromosomes of this little boy, causing his neurodevelopmental condition. So bringing it all together, our Undiagnosed Disease program, which is a critical part of Gene to Care, has increased diagnoses by at least 40% for our families. And that's thanks to these amazing collaborations, both nationally and internationally. I'm part of a national collaboration, the Rare Disease Awareness, Education, Support and Training, in partnership with Rare Voices Australia, the national peak body for people living with a rare disease. We've delivered 8 recommendations for how to improve care for people living with rare and undiagnosed conditions. And we believe that Gene to Care is helping us facilitate timely and accurate diagnoses, connecting up and sharing knowledge, and very much in line with recommendation number 4, responding to the inherent uncertainty of rare disease by facilitating connections with rare disease and patient advocacy groups, research including clinical trials, and new therapies and technologies. The last word must go to our families. Here's Lily's mum, Melissa, speaking about the importance of a diagnosis. I won't change Lily for the world, but the genetic result is important as it empowers you with information. It's provided us with the knowledge of what's been found in the 8 other people who've received the same diagnosis around the world, helping to create more of a future medical management plan for her and to put preventative measures in place. But we know we have so far to go, and we're really keen to continue going, connecting our families with the best in national and international research. For example, this amazing project led from the University of Oxford in the UK and the Broad Institute in the US, describing a new non-coding gene, which we believe is finding the answer for 2 of our Gene Add families. So on Undiagnosed Disease Day, we send out a huge thank you to all of our families, our funders, including the National Health and Medical Research Council in Australia, Sydney Children's Hospitals Foundation and Luminous Alliance, and our incredible national and global collaborators. We hope that together we can continue to make a difference.
Hello everyone, my name is Salman Kirmani. I am a clinical geneticist and a pediatric endocrinologist here at the Aga Khan University in Karachi, Pakistan, and very proud to be associated with the Undiagnosed Disease Network International and the Wilhelm Foundation. Today I have the privilege to talk to you about the Champions Initiative that the UDNI and the Wilhelm Initiative have undertaken, where support is being provided to undiagnosed patients in Pakistan, and the Undiagnosed Disease Program at the Aga Khan University is being supported. So I'm going to give you an outline of the bigger picture of where Pakistan is and what our problems are, specifically related to the challenges of the undiagnosed patients and their families, and then some solutions by collaboration that we've been able to create. So Pakistan is the 5th most populous country in the world. We unfortunately have a very low literacy with a very high poverty rate and thus a very poor health infrastructure. On top of that, we have one of the highest incidences of cousin marriages and community marriages. Thus, the incidence of autosomal recessive disorders and birth defects is much higher than the rest of the world. In this situation where malnutrition and infectious diseases are hugely prevalent because of all of these problems, we also have a very huge burden of rare diseases. And so many of these patients remain undiagnosed, and families, and especially women who even suspect that they may have a child with a genetic disorder, are unable to seek the help that they need. There is no universal newborn screening program that would diagnose these young infants, and overall the health workforce and public are ill-informed about genetics and genetic diagnoses. Also, there are many other challenges. Access to testing is very, very limited and very expensive. There are many cultural challenges, as I discussed. And also, once a diagnosis is made, the affordability of extremely expensive therapies limits the family's ability to actually benefit from the diagnosis. So, this is a framework I've used from the National Organization of Rare Diseases, NORD, and as you can see, a patient's journey is tracked where, even in the best resourced countries, multiple institutions and multiple specialists have to be visited. The family actually has to do a lot of advocacy and research on their own to get to the right place. Ultimately, in some cases, a diagnosis is made, and once a diagnosis is made, that's where the therapeutic journey actually begins. And our challenge is, our patients remain undiagnosed for the most part, so the families are actually even unable to begin that therapeutic journey. Also, if there is no diagnosis, there are no preventative measures that can be offered, and families are left to chase unconventional and risky options. So in this very tough scenario, the Champions Initiative through the UDNI and Wilhelm Foundation come in, and they've really done a remarkable job to support our UDP. First of all, they've connected various low-resource UDPs amongst various countries so that we can learn from each other and actually benefit from some of the resources within our own regions. There's been a lot of support for overall getting families within our UDPs to a diagnosis. The first hackathon was at the Karolinska Institute last year, and it's in the Radboud Medical Center this year in Nijmegen. We have been given support to attend UDNI meetings and events so that we can be part of the UDNI community and contribute to the knowledge there. Specifically for Pakistan, the UDNI and Wilhelm Foundation have actually connected us to a global nurses network for rare diseases, where our genetics nurse is actually learning on how to take care of patients with rare diseases. We've been given a grant to hire and train a genetic counseling trainee so we can increase that capacity here. And very recently, we were given some funds to actually get software to do genomic analysis and increase our capability of finally doing in-house testing versus having to outsource it at a very expensive rate. To increase capacity further in both clinical care and research, we are looking into PhD scholars going to UDNI partner institutions to further increase our capacity to take care of patients with rare diseases. And finally, lots of networking has happened to make this happen. So in summary, we have a huge burden of genetic diseases with few care providers. Families are burdened with this lifelong problem and social stigma of undiagnosed diseases. Unfortunately, access and affordability to genetic testing is still a limitation, but thankfully the world is coming together to help us. With this, I'd like to acknowledge the huge support again, both Helen and Mick Sederoth at the Wilhelm Foundation, as well as Lisa Schimenti and Bill Gall and multiple other members of the UDNI, the fellow UDNI champions, and finally the global genetics community. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Matt Boltz-Johnson. I'm the mental health lead at EURORDIS. I'm joining you today on the Undiagnosed Rare Disease Day to raise awareness of the impact of living with an undiagnosed disease on mental health. For too long now, mental health is an unseen and neglected unmet need that's been overshadowed by those other medical complexities associated with undiagnosed and rare diseases. Whilst mental health can be a primary characteristic or comorbidity for many diseases and conditions, at a population level, everyone in our community who lives through the undiagnosed disease odyssey lives with the impact of that journey and impact on their mental health and well-being. With the diagnostic odyssey, the time to diagnosis can be lengthy and traumatic. It can be peppered with a history of misdiagnoses and how communication is given to those diagnoses, whether they're misdiagnoses or the final diagnoses, that can really impact on the individual and the family and the carers, and it can reduce the trust in the healthcare professionals. Living with an undiagnosed disease comes with living with uncertainty, and uncertainty about the prognosis and the future, and that increases our anxiety. The low awareness of healthcare professionals and the public of rare and undiagnosed disease increases isolation and frustration. The relationship between the emotional and physical symptoms of undiagnosed diseases is quite complex, and a lot of those diagnostic tests or treatments can be very intensive and can increase the stress on ourselves and on the family. All these stresses and strain add up and can be impacted on our individual relationships within the family, with our parents, with couples, and with our friends. The diagnostic odyssey affects the whole family. Over a third of parents living of a child with an undiagnosed disease actually live with mild to moderate depression and anxiety. Having access to psychosocial support is key throughout that undiagnosed pathway. And when that happens, our Rare Barometer Voices survey has highlighted that actually people who have psychosocial support through that journey actually get a diagnosis quicker than those who don't. EURORDIS have stepped forward and have given space in our community to address the needs of mental health. We wanted to put as a priority mental health as an advocacy priority, and we wanted to start to take action to address those needs. So this mental health network was launched last year on World Mental Health Day in October, and it gives space for us to come together and be united, to say and to recognize that your mental health needs matters. Yes, it's important to find a diagnosis. Yes, it's important to find a cure and to push research. But whilst those things are happening, it's your mental health matters. And for us, the mental health network gives space for us to come together, to be seen, to learn from each other and to support each other. Already the network has over 120 people involved, of which around 70 of them are patients and people living with a rare and undiagnosed disease. And we've got about 50 clinicians, researchers, and psychologists involved. We are also doing some work later on this year with our Rare Barometer survey tool, and we're doing a survey on mental well-being and health. So get involved in that, sign up to join our mental health partnership network, get involved in Rare Barometer Voices, because we can use this data to look at the specific needs of the people living with an undiagnosed rare disease, and you get concrete data which can be used in our advocacy. We've been raising awareness of mental health in rare diseases and also in rare diseases in mental health. So we've had a number of webinars so far. This webinar program will continue, but as you can see, our third webinar was on looking at the impact of the Diagnostic Odyssey on mental health. That's available still on our website, and you can get more information on our activities we're doing to address the mental health needs of the rare and undiagnosed disease community. Thank you.
Hello, this is Judith Escales, the publisher of Rare Open Research in Rare Diseases. This is the official journal of the UDNI. The journal was launched 1 year ago in the context of a package of actions taken by Elsevier to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Orphan Drugs Act in the United States. I was lucky enough to find a great partner in this adventure, who's Wendy van Zel-Stams in the Radboud University in the Netherlands and an active member of the UDNI. She is the editor-in-chief on the journal, and we are very proud to say that so far we have published 25 articles coming from more than 11 countries. We have an editorial board filled by members of the UDNI and also very geographically diverse. From the start, the UDNI was very supportive of the project. I invite you to read the position paper they published in Rare when we were born 1 year ago. And I was able to meet most of the members in their meeting in Georgia last fall. It was just great to meet them and to feel that this community that the UDNI has built is so into sharing. Everyone is sharing, researchers are sharing data, patients are sharing experiences, and they are all sharing the same goal, which is improve the quality of life of those who don't have a diagnosis, or they have it, but they find that it's so difficult to get either medicines or new treatments. And this is one of our goals too in the journal. We want to publish new research. We want to hear about the caregivers and the patients. And this is why we welcome your articles. I think that's all. As I was saying, just go to Science Direct, the page the big library where you will find Rare. All contents are free of access. And I hope to see you soon in any of the many actions that the UDNI supports. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Undiagnosed Disease Day 2024. I'm Yasemin Alanay. I'm a pediatrician and a clinical geneticist from Istanbul, Turkey. I've been in the field of rare and undiagnosed diseases for the last 20 years. I'm very happy to be among the participants in this year's event.
Good morning. I am Uğur Özbek and I am medical geneticist. I have been working in this field since 30 years and involved with rare and undiagnosed disease concept in more than 15 years. And I'm working in Izmir Biomedicine and Genome Center. And today we are going to share our experiences with you. And in this, we have some facts and figures that we can share with our experiences. Turkey is a big country and a relatively young population. And in this regard, we have about 20 to 30% consanguinity rate. And this is also aligns with our region, because in the Middle East, North Africa, we have a quite high number of consanguineous marriages. So when we come to Turkey for the rare and undiagnosed disease, with a population of 85 million, at least 7 million people are affected. And in a middle income country, we have a limited number of clinical trials, and it's again 75% of the cases are in a pediatric age. So last year, our rare and undiagnosed disease national action plan has been established, and we hope that there will be a better prospect for in the organization and the care of the patients. And also we have Turkish Rare Disease Patient Network and Federation, and they are working very closely with us in our diagnostic odyssey.
At Acıbadem University in 2017, with the leadership of Dr. Özbek, we established a rare disease center. And this rare disease center applied for a project from Istanbul Development Agency. And we started off with doing a need analysis study. In this study, we were able to see the obstacles and expectations of the rare disease and undiagnosed disease community. You can see here that the experiences and the obstacles the parents and the families are facing are very similar to those we see in the globally. So there's an issue of schooling, there's an issue of personal care activities, and the parental job difficulties. Their expectations are also very similar. They want to access medicine easily. They want to access specialist care better. They want less bureaucracy, and they want the medical professionals to be more trained in terms of diagnosing and treating rare diseases, rare and undiagnosed diseases. With this project, we were also able to establish the first undiagnosed disease program in Turkey. It's based in Istanbul at the moment. And with this program, we have an algorithm very similar to the undiagnosed disease working group of UDNI. So the physician applies for their patient, for their undiagnosed patient, and the algorithm works its way. And if we don't have a diagnosis in our system, we forward the undiagnosed patient to undiagnosed disease networks, internationals, diagnostic working group. So we are in close collaboration with them.
And in continuation of work in Istanbul, in İzmir Biomedicine and Genome Center, a project supported from EU, ERA-Chair program. There's a project called Rare Boost, boosting the rare disease research capacity for regionally. And in this project, we are doing developing research and innovation capacity, as well as soft skill and international collaborations to solve, diagnose, and also make path to the diagnostic and treatment way for the patients. And today, from Izmir and Istanbul, we thank you from our heart. And Yasemin.
Thank you all, and See you all soon. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Klee, and I'm one of several people at the Mayo Clinic involved in the Undiagnosed Disease Network International. I would like to extend my best wishes today to everyone on Undiagnosed Disease Day 2024. It's truly an honor to be part of such an exceptional community of people who are devoting their time, energy, and expertise to identifying the cause of undiagnosed disease afflicting so many individuals from around this world. As I reflect on what we've accomplished over the last several years, it just amazes me. The way we've come together as a community, we've reached out, we've connected, and we've established a network of people, all striving towards the same thing, solving the unsolved and bringing answers to individuals and families, no matter where they're found. It's my honor today to update you on what's going on at the Mayo Clinic. This past year, we've become a member of the United States Undiagnosed Disease Network as an X01 Diagnostic Center of Excellence, continuing our commitment to working in the space and really pushing the boundaries on what's possible for people with undiagnosed disease. Again, I'd like to just take this moment to thank everybody and wish them the best on this Undiagnosed Disease Day. Thank you.
The National Organization for Rare Disorders is pleased to recognize Undiagnosed Day 2024 in support of the undiagnosed patient community. NORD is the leading patient advocacy organization in the United States dedicated to improving the health and well-being of people living with rare diseases and their families by driving advances in care, research, and policy. For over 40 years, NORD has advocated for the needs of those living with or suspected to have a rare disease, including those with undiagnosed medical conditions. We do this through a variety of programs and initiatives such as creating rare disease reports for families and clinicians to use during their diagnostic journey, advocating for increased access to diagnostic tools such as newborn screening and genetic testing, connecting patients and families to academic medical centers through the NORD Rare Disease Centers of Excellence program to help facilitate diagnosis, creating and disseminating medical education to help improve the time to diagnosis for rare diseases, and by providing financial assistance to families so they can afford diagnostic testing, specialist visits, and seek answers from programs such as the Undiagnosed Diseases Network, or UDN. Since 2016, NORD has provided more than $300,000 in financial assistance to over 400 patients enrolled in the UDN program. Many in the rare disease community go undiagnosed or misdiagnosed for years before getting answers. Some wait their whole lifetimes. As we mark Undiagnosed Day on April 29th, we remain committed to our participation in national and global forums to address the needs of the undiagnosed patient community, including the Undiagnosed Diseases Network International and the Global Commission to End the Diagnostic Odyssey. We look forward to announcing several new resources and initiatives to further our support of the undiagnosed patient community.
Hello, and thank you for inviting us to talk today. I'm Matthew Spencer. I'm the Paediatric Rare Disease Clinical Fellow for the Syndrome Without a Name, or Swan Clinic, which is run out of Cardiff, Wales. Today, I'm going to give you a quick update regarding our service and our patient data. Then our clinical nurse specialist, Zoe Morrison, will provide details regarding her role and an evaluation of the service. So some of you out there might not know what the Swan Clinic is. The Swan, or Syndrome Without a Name Clinic, is a specialist clinic designed to investigate patients with possible rare undiagnosed conditions. We were the first to be commissioned in the UK as a dedicated service for both children and adults. We're an all-Wales service and we're based out of the Cardiff University Hospital. We were initially funded as a 2-year pilot, however we've now had additional funding to run until the end of March 2025. In our clinic, patients are discussed in a weekly MDT by specialists, and then they're seen in a face-to-face clinic. Our main aim is to shorten the diagnostic odyssey for patients with an undiagnosed condition, and our acceptance criteria is that patients have an involvement of 2 or more organs and they are suspected of having a unifying diagnosis. Now I'm going to really quickly run through some of our data, and I'll start with our paediatric patients. Since the clinic's inception, we've had 70 referrals and we've accepted 54 of those patients, with an acceptance rate in the paediatric department of 77%. We've had referrals in the paediatric department from all across Wales, although we find that our patients primarily come from the Swansea area and the Cardiff area, which are 2 of the biggest cities within Wales. We've had patients referred from 11 different specialities, but most commonly they come from our genetic department and also immunology. From our accepted patients, 39 are still undergoing investigation with the team, and 36 have also been seen in clinic. Of our 14 discharged paediatric patients, 3 of them were discharged with a diagnosis. From our 39 patients that are still under investigation, 5 have either a confirmed or likely diagnoses. Some of the examples of the diagnoses which the Swan team have made include a TTC7A deficiency, ataxia telangiectasia, an SIAH1 mutation, a 19p13.3 deletion, a diagnosis of urofacial syndrome, and also a diagnosis of amyloplasia, just to name a few. Moving on to our adult department, the adult team have seen 80 referrals since we started, and 46 of those patients have been accepted, with a lower acceptance rate compared to the paediatric team of 58%. Again, our patients are referred from all across Wales, and in the adult team there seems to be a bit more of a wide spread. There have been referrals made from 18 different specialities, and again, like the paediatric teams, the majority of these come from genetics and immunology. 37 of the accepted adult patients are still undergoing investigation, and 29 in total have been seen in our face-to-face clinics. The adult team have discharged 5 of their adult patients, and 2 of these were discharged with a diagnosis. 37 patients are still under investigation, and 8 of these have either a confirmed or likely diagnosis. Some examples of diagnoses include cherolytic Winter's erythema, a TAP1 immunodeficiency, a TCEAL mutation, a bile acid synthesis disorder, and a diagnosis of hypoparathyroidism. I'll now hand over to Zoe Morrison, the Swan clinical nurse specialist, who will talk a little bit more about her role.
My name is Zoe and I'm the clinical nurse specialist for both the paediatric and adult side of the Swan Clinic. The role of the clinical nurse specialist is unique to our Swan Clinic, and it's a multifactorial role in which we provide care coordination to our patients while they are under our investigations. Part of my role involves being the nurse representative on the multidisciplinary team, as well as being an advocate for the patient and being the link between teams not only within our hospital but across the rest of Wales, both primary and secondary care, as well as schools and work and social care. Initial contact with the clinic is normally through myself, and I also undertake a holistic needs assessment for all of our patients, and that's integrated into our clinical care pathway. I can also make referrals to other agencies if I feel that the family could require some additional support or adaptations, as well as signposting them to services, charities, welfare benefits, etc. Any history that's passed on to me is related to our clinical fellow and the rest of the team, and I'm also responsible for the coordination of the patient-reported outcome measures and experience measures and the quality of life questionnaires. I also provide a lot of emotional support for the family, as well as attending MDTs, school meetings, writing letters of support for benefits or housing or education. I also coordinate the outpatient clinics and do liaisons between the medical secretaries and medical teams, and I undertake follow-up reviews for our patients as well. This is a holistic needs assessment that is built into the clinical care pathway. It is split into 6 domains, which include physical health, emotional health, housing, finances, current support, and for paediatrics we ask about education, and for adults we ask about education or vocation. As you can see, there are no set questions, and that allows the participant to tell us as much or as little information as they want, and we aim to collect this before we see them in clinic to give us a complete view of their lives. It's not just specific to the patient, but we also collect information on the patient's wider family and the carers who are responsible for them. The aim of this document is to identify areas that are working well for the patient, but also identify areas that might be able to be improved on. As part of our ongoing evaluation of the Swan Clinic, we've been collecting PROM data at pre-clinic, 6 months post-clinic and at discharge. Our PROM captures the Self-Management Assessment Scale, which assesses a patient's self-management strengths, needs and possible barriers across 5 domains. These include knowledge, goals for the future, daily routines, emotional adjustment and social support. The data collected at the pre-clinic visit was largely similar between paediatrics and adults, and at 6 months we've managed to show an increase across all of these domains. However, we have shown a larger increase in the adult population. The pre-clinic visit also highlighted that 11 of our patients were in immediate need for self-management. However, at a 6-month period, we've reduced this down to 0.
So what does the future hold for Swan? Well, we're going to continue collecting our PREMs and PROMs from our patients. We've now got our reanalysis arm up and running, so we're able to reanalyze our patient's DNA. We're submitting patients for a new metabolomic study. We're continuing to build data on our cohort of undiagnosed patients, and we hope to use this in the future to look at the complexity of such patients and also to gather data on the health and economics of Swan service as well. We're going to look at the formation of patient passports. We're going to continue to build on the excellent work of the Swan nurse specialists, and we're looking to collaborate with national and international teams. Finally, our long-term plans include bespoke testing with RNA sequencing, long-read sequencing, episignatures, proteomics, and functional testing, all possibilities. So that's it from me. I appreciate that it was kind of a whistle-stop tour. However, thank you for listening. And at the Swan team, we're keen to collaborate with anybody, so feel free to get in touch.
Hi everyone, I'm Gülçin Gümüş from EURORDIS, and I'll talk to you about our journey as an umbrella organization and how we help identify, voice, and address the needs of undiagnosed community. We are the umbrella European organization that aims to improve the lives of people living with rare diseases. We work across borders and across diseases. We engage, empower, and advocate for rare disease patients. About our work on Undiagnosed, I want to start with this position paper that we developed together with other organizations working on Undiagnosed. It's a position paper listing 5 recommendations to address specific needs of undiagnosed rare disease patients. And patients without a clear diagnosis, they have trouble getting the right health and social care because our systems are built around specific diagnoses. And if you don't have a diagnosis, the systems can't give you support or the care that you need. But for some people, being undiagnosed is not always a temporary phase, it's a lifelong journey. So this position paper is really important because it calls for all stakeholders to recognize that undiagnosed patients are a specific population with specific unmet needs. And then here I want to talk about the Rare Barometer. This is an initiative by EURORDIS, where we collect the opinion and experiences of people living with rare diseases and turn them into facts and figures. So we can share this with patient organizations, with policymakers, with the public, and then we can say rare disease community experiences this, they want this, or they need this. And we have more than 20,000 people registered in this initiative. So the information from the surveys, it's a collective voice of a large community. And we consult our community's opinion on a lot of topics. As an example, here's our recent survey on the journey to diagnosis, which was launched last March. And what we wanted to know was the total time to diagnosis for Europe, for people living with rare diseases, what are the barriers to diagnosis, and which factors contribute to diagnostic delays. And we had more than 13,000 people responding worldwide, and more than 1,400 of them were undiagnosed or with a partial or unconfirmed diagnosis. And if you go to our website, you can find much more information about the survey. You can listen to our podcast where we talk about the survey results and we explain what they mean. Now I'll move on to another approach, research projects. And my example is from this research project called Solve RD. It's about improving diagnostic of rare disease patients. Within this project, to support the needs of undiagnosed and recently diagnosed patients, we establish a multi-stakeholder group with different experts, and we talk about the topics that are relevant to undiagnosed and ultra-rare disease patients: the psychological effect of a delay of a diagnosis, the diagnostic odyssey, the misdiagnosis, or the economical burden of consultations, examinations, or tests. And within this project, we also try to depict the journey that most rare disease patients go through. It's a long journey, frustrating journey, and the patients shouldn't have to go through this alone. And we wanted to highlight that patient organizations have to be included in the process way earlier to support the patients, not only after genetic testing results, even before. So patients, groups, and patient contacts can make all the difference to empower each other and to learn from each other. And this is another example, a 3-year project to improve the diagnosis, treatment, and care of patients with rare diseases. And it has a specific part dedicated to undiagnosed. And this is very important because in most of the countries, the undiagnosed population remains invisible. Their needs are not addressed. To address the needs of the undiagnosed, the national healthcare systems, they really need to analyze first how many undiagnosed people there are, and then identify what their needs are. So in this project, as EURORDIS, we will identify specific needs of undiagnosed patient organizations, and then elaborate recommendations for national patient organizations. We'll also look at psychological support, how to support the patients, how to support the already existing undiagnosed organizations. And this is our involvement in international networks, the Undiagnosed Diseases International Network, and there we're chairing a patient engagement group together with Wilhelm Foundation and Nord, and we want to bring the patient voice to give the undiagnosed patient organizations a platform to share and collaborate and to increase their involvement in the UDNI. So, for example, this is the latest international conference on UDNI in Georgia, and we organized a patient session. We had more than 50 participants, which were undiagnosed families and patients from 23 patient organizations. And we discussed topics like newborn screening, diagnostic odyssey, and mental health. So this kind of events really shows also the power of the patient engagement and impact of the collaboration of organizations in the undiagnosed network. And you can also join UDNI as a patient organization. And it doesn't matter where in the world you are, because we do our conferences online, we do our meetings online, we talk about strategies of bringing more patient voice into the undiagnosed network. Also, your organization will gain visibility and you will be aware of what's going on and be able to share your activities with other organizations that focus on undiagnosed. So if you want to be part of this, just scan the QR code or send us an application from the UDNI website. And you see, as an umbrella organization, we use different approaches to support undiagnosed patients. And I want to finish with 3 important takeaways. First, we need to understand and make people recognize that undiagnosed community is a distinct population that has specific unmet needs. Second, to voice and address these needs properly, we need to empower undiagnosed patients and their carers in research projects, in policy, and in undiagnosed networks. And the last point, it is important to focus on diagnosis, of course, but we also need to understand that for some people, being undiagnosed is not always a temporary phase. There will be people who will be left undiagnosed. And as patient organizations, we should provide support to the undiagnosed community, the patients and their families, leaving no one behind. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, I'm Rachel Yang. I'm a physician scientist by training and a rare disease advocate. I have been representing the Chinese rare disease patient communities on the global stage, serving as an advisor for China Alliance for Rare Diseases and for Fudan University Zhongshan Hospital Rare Disease Diagnosis and Treatment Center. I'm also the Secretary of Board of Rare Disease International. 15-year-old Ken has been suffering from a debilitating neurological disease since he was 8. The short video shows Ken's progressive loss of motor function since around 2015.
5、6、7、8、9、10、11、12、13、14、15、16。2015年4月4日，多棒！骑得真好，歘歘的。这是2015年6月22日，夏至。 看我们小佳木走的怎么样。今天是2018年3月2019年5月18日，2009年11月7日。2020年5月。2021年5月20。2023年4月8。今天是2024年1月7号。
Ken and his parents live in Beijing, China's capital city, which has the best medical resources in the whole country. Despite of the fact Ken was seen by many top physicians in Beijing and even went to the John Hopkins in the US, a definitive diagnosis still eluded the family. When I approached the family for the opportunity to participate in the first hackathon, the family jumped to its feet. But soon they were met with an unsurmountable barrier. They were unable to send Ken's blood to Stockholm for next-generation sequencing, as China has imposed strict regulations on human genetic materials. They were also unable to travel to Stockholm due to COVID restriction. So after going through a lot of hoops and spending many hours trying to circumvent this barrier, Ken was unable to participate in last year's hackathon due to data upload issues. I'm sharing Ken's story today to show that additional roadblocks patients encounter outside of their medical journey. China is huge. Despite of the recent economic development, there's still a significant portion of the population living with very limited means. The past Premier Li Keqiang had famously said, out of the 1.4 billion Chinese people, 600 million still lives with less than $150 per month. These 600 million people will not have means to seek any medical service if they fall sick of a disease that's hard to diagnose. The poorest people in China also tend to have higher consanguinity, so higher probabilities to suffer from rare diseases. The extreme imbalance of healthcare resources in China means the country's best hospitals and doctors are concentrated in a few major cities like Beijing and Shanghai. Patients from the vast countryside will need to travel to the big cities for thorough checkup for possible diagnosis. The medical security, which is provided by local government, often only covers part of the local cost. If a patient goes to another province, they will bear higher out-of-pocket costs. For people living in big cities like Beijing, Shanghai, where medical resources are abundant, the road to diagnosis is less bumpier, but still far from smooth. China's healthcare system is very episodic. There's no primary care doctor who serves as a gatekeeper for a person's health. People are free to go to any hospitals. So in big cities, people will go to tertiary hospitals for something as small as a cold. This resulted in China's tertiary hospital being perpetually overloaded. Doctors often only spend a few minutes on each patient, including a very difficult to diagnose patient. On top of that, healthcare records are often not shareable among hospitals. By going through different hospitals and different physicians, patients often have to repeat exams and tests, resulting in high medical costs. MDT is possible only when patient is admitted to a hospital. All of the above means that the diagnostic odyssey for Chinese patients are still long and winding. As a person with Chinese origin living in Zurich, it's really my pleasure and honor to have the chance to work with all of you to make the patient's diagnostic journey a little easier. And with that, I conclude my speech today. And thank you again, Helena and Mick, and the Wilhelm Foundation for your dedication, leadership, and wonderful work.
Good day, my name is Sue Baker. I'm a senior nurse and currently the Programme Director for the Rare Care Centre at Perth Children's Hospital in Western Australia and co-founder of the Global Nursing Network for Rare Diseases, which also includes undiagnosed diseases. So why was Global Nursing Network needed? Well, nurses are the world's largest healthcare workforce, representing about 50% in total, and they are the most accessible healthcare provider and often the only healthcare provider available in many regions. Nurses deliver the majority of care across the lifespan, including being involved in screening, delivering therapies and treatments, providing health education, coordinating care, and providing counselling and emotional support to patients and families. Therefore, they are often the best placed professional to advocate for people living with rare and undiagnosed diseases. However, what we found was that nurses were missing from the strategic level discussions, and there was no existing mechanism to connect nurses globally in relation to rare and undiagnosed disease care. In March 2023, we brought together 33 nurses from 25 countries, 50% of which were from low and middle income countries, along with 8 global leaders for a 2-day workshop to co-design the network to ensure it would be relevant to members and would attract and retain nurses. From there, a community of practice was created for nurses to share knowledge and expertise with the aim to improve care and support for people living with rare and undiagnosed diseases in a way that is equitable, sustainable and scalable. The network strategically positions nurses to influence local, national and global advocacy and policy platforms. It is designed for all nurses, as every nurse will care for people with rare and undiagnosed diseases across their career, regardless of the setting or area in which they work. As well as undiagnosed, the network encompasses all rare diseases, as patients and families, irrespective of the individual rare disease, experience the same challenges and their needs are common, meaning that common solutions can be implemented. One of the first priorities of the Global Nursing Network was to launch a professional online platform in September 2023 to connect nurses globally, and we currently have almost 300 members representing 37 countries. The next priority is to develop an education programme that is tailored to nurses, the development of which is underway. There are a number of bespoke projects that we are starting to progress through the network. For example, we are currently creating an animation video for teachers to better understand how to support students with rare and undiagnosed diseases, along with an education package. We're taking a global approach with this, so enlisting the help of the nursing members to identify teachers from their own countries to attend a global virtual workshop. Nursing members have also started to lead initiatives within their own local regions. For example, our Sri Lankan lead nurse has introduced a genetics module into the Bachelor of Nursing degree at Colombo University. We have started to forge collaborations with various other organisations, for example, Medics for Rare Disease in the UK, where we are partnering to adapt their existing education resources for nurses. The network is also being approached by various organisations to seek nursing input into their initiatives, and several countries have approached us to assist with establishing regional and national nursing networks. We are hosting a second planning meeting in May this year as part of the MENA RD Congress in Abu Dhabi to validate and operationalise our 3-year strategic plan, develop a structure for regional and national nursing chapters, and scope options to accommodate linguistic diversity, which is needed if we truly want to be equitable. We are also looking to establish linkages to individual rare and undiagnosed disease networks and organisations with the aim to develop an A to Z directory with a lead expert resource nurse for each disease. We are about to advertise an expression of interest for a global lived experience advisory group to work in partnership with us and ensure the focus remains on patient care. And we're working towards building a critical mass of network members and aiming for 1,000 nurses by the end of 2024. I would like to ask each of you to share information about the network with your nursing and midwifery colleagues, and to stay up to date with the network activities, please follow us on LinkedIn, or you can contact us via email. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tudor Groza, and I am the Data and Technical Coordinator at the Rare Case Centre in Perth, Australia, and the visiting scientist at Sing Health Duke NUS Institute of Precision Medicine, Singapore. And I would like to spend the next couple of minutes to tell you more about the digital work we do at the Rare Care Centre to support patients and families suffering from undiagnosed diseases. As we know, receiving an early and accurate diagnosis is imperative for informed care in medicine. And yet patients and families living with suspected rare conditions will often spend more than 5 years in a diagnostic odyssey. For many children, however, this odyssey will ultimately be futile, since more than 50% of the rare disease patients do not receive a molecular diagnosis. The management of the clinical features, hence, become critical to the child as well as the family's well-being. Devising informed care pathways for undiagnosed patients, covering prognosis, surveillance, coordinated clinical and social care, is essential to support mental health, well-being, and appropriate access to resources. This is the primary aim of the Rare Care Centre, which, in partnership with the Western Australian Register for Developmental Anomalies, has developed a world-first transformative, co-designed cross-sector model of care to provide holistic care and support in an integrated and responsive service, and has put choice and control back into the hands of the families. The model of care uses health as an entry point and covers a variety of dimensions such as education, family support, disability, or mental health that contribute to an improved quality of life for our patients. My role within the center is to build computational models of disease that capture the various dependency relationships that govern clinical features of phenotypes, and produce phenotype trajectories to support the model of care. Phenotype trajectories are computational models of disease that unlock the power of a personalized and predictive longitudinal view over the child's health and well-being. An example of a phenotype trajectory is, as depicted here, an unmanaged hydrocephalus could lead to cortical damage, which could lead to blindness and hence impact education. Having this relationship externalized and interpreted in a given temporal context can lead to an appropriate informed care plan for our patients. We use the human phenotype ontology as the foundational representation layer for our work, as well as the knowledge graph built and maintained by the Monarch Initiative. We develop automated extraction methods that use natural language processing and the latest large language models to lift unstructured data present in both referral documentation as well as trustworthy knowledge sources such as gene reviews, OMIM, or GARD. Resulting knowledge units are then manually and automatically assembled into trajectories, similar to putting all the pieces together in a puzzle. We also recognize that the complexity associated with the condition of rare disease patients and families is aggravated by the lack of appropriate communication means. Currently, all information provided to patients adopt a standard medical terminology, which is both complex to understand by patients as well as impossible to describe or to relay when patients have to interact with various services, such as education or disability. It is hence critical to bring this information to a level that is acceptable and comprehensible to everyone. Large language models have demonstrated remarkable results in generating summarizing text using various modalities and tones, including transforming complex medical language into lay language. We have hence adopted the use of generative AI to generate patient letters underpinned by their phenotype trajectories in layman terminology. The same trustworthy knowledge sources are used to summarizing their condition, if this is known, and describing the associated phenotypes, in addition to providing relevant information related to support groups or clinical trials. Now, understanding phenotype trajectories offers a significant advantage in early health, event detection and management, particularly beneficial for disadvantaged children with limited healthcare access. Early detection facilitates timely intervention, potentially preventing the progression of the condition and reducing disease burden. Disabilities associated with rare diseases can significantly impact the child's educational journey. Phenotype trajectories enable educators to adapt teaching strategies and offer appropriate support to optimize learning experience for a child. This knowledge can help in early identification of learning difficulties or cognitive impairments, enabling timely interventions and fostering academic success. For children facing physical disabilities, phenotype trajectories can play a crucial role in rehabilitation strategy and assistive technology use. Understanding disability evolution empowers the rare care team to design personalized rehabilitation programs, enhancing motor skills, independence, and the quality of life. Adaptations to assistive devices ensure inclusivity by accommodating changes in a child's condition. Our goal, in general, is to capture phenotype trajectories in a computationally tractable manner and translate them into actionable outcomes for all patients and their families and the rare care team, including a more accurate view over the prognosis and functional consequences. Thank you.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for the opportunity to present about the model of care at our Rare Care Centre, the Clinical Centre of Expertise for Rare and Undiagnosed Disease. In a nutshell, what is the Rare Care Centre? Well, we can think about it as being like a home for coordination across all the different sectors. The centre is about what next? What next after you have a diagnosis? It's also about what now? What do we do for those who are still undiagnosed and critically need care and support? Our model of care is a holistic and cross-sector or inter-agency model. And what do we mean by that? We mean that we actually employ people across all the different sectors, across the education sector, disability, welfare, as well as health, mental health, Aboriginal health. We employ in primary care as well as specialist care to create the pathways, the language and the team to coordinate across the whole of the life experience. It's a centre because the most important component is of course the clinical care that we provide, but partnered to that are a number of streams of activity which all collectively lift the tide of those providing the care and those in our community through awareness, education, support, capacity building, new technologies, partnerships, advocacy and other interventions, all iteratively improving the model of care. The model of care has been co-designed with all sectors, with clinicians from all specialties across our hospital, with stakeholders across all the different sectors, and most importantly, with the children and families living with rare and undiagnosed themselves. The referral criteria are simply any rare or undiagnosed disease. In our first stages of implementation, a child currently under the care of the Children's Hospital or another paediatrician, and there's an identified gap in care across any of the different sectors. The ethos is about adding value to the journey, not adding in another layer of complexity and not duplicating. One of the beauties of the model is that the existing sector and agency professionals remain involved in the care delivery, and the model accommodates both high complexity and low complexity conditions for equity purposes and also for scale. The program is time limited, so depending on the complexity you may remain on the program for 1, 2, 4 or even 12 months, and then we follow up 2 months thereafter to make sure that the pathways put in place are embedded. And of course, children can be re-referred. This is the first child seen through our Rare Care Centre, and this illustrates the different professionals involved in that person's care, again across all the different sectors: health, NDIS, our disability service provision scheme, primary care, education and others. The enormous burden that this family must take to try and coordinate that. We can see the hospital journey of this family, the multiple inpatient and outpatient admissions, hundreds of them, and the incredible rate of attendance despite all these many appointments. And then suddenly, we see a drop-off represented in yellow, where we see suddenly a rate of did not attend. Through our rare care model, we were able to support the family to reverse that trend, to coordinate their care into manageable chunks, and to provide the necessary supports for them to engage in their care. In fact, key factors to support this family were getting the developmental assessment to access the appropriate level of disability support and school support, to actually allow the child to enrol in school, to prevent the school exclusion, to prevent the mother's mental health journey, because mental health is such a critical factor in providing the well-being to engage fully in life, and other interventions. So where are we now? So this is a snapshot, probably from about now 6 months ago, but it's representative. At that time, we'd had 150 referrals, 130 of which were accepted, and 53 of which had been discharged from the program. The age of referral are at transitions, and transitions from the newborn period and through to infancy and early childhood, at transitions into school, and transitions from childhood to adult care. And the services that we provide cluster into, as you can see, disability service, family support and education, school education, followed by more traditional health and counselling services.
Hello everyone, my name is Claudia Gonzaga Jauregui and I'm an assistant professor at the International Laboratory for Human Genome Research of UNAM in Mexico. And today I'm really happy to share with you our efforts and progress in ending the undiagnosed diseases odyssey in Latin America. As we know, rare diseases are defined because of their low prevalence in the general population, affecting a small number of individuals at a time. Different countries and different regions have diverging definitions of what a rare disease is. In the Latin America and the Caribbean region, composed of 33 countries, there's not a consistent definition throughout the region of a rare disease, and many countries have no definition at all. In countries like Argentina, Chile, Mexico, Panama, and Uruguay, the definition is one that affects less than 5 in 10,000 people. Brazil and Colombia have different definitions. Also, the number of rare diseases that are recognized in the different countries is variable. As we know, individually, these conditions are rare, but they are common as a group, and they affect 6 to 8% of the world population. In the Latin American Caribbean region, we estimate that there are 50 million people living with a rare disease. In Mexico only, we estimate that there are 10 million Mexicans living with a rare or no prevalence disorder. Also, it is important to note that in our region, we have about 50 million indigenous people, of which we estimate that 3 to 4 million people are living with a rare disease. And this is important because these individuals are generally part of communities and populations that are vulnerable with less access to healthcare and technologies for diagnosis and medical care. 80% of the conditions are genetic, and we know the molecular cause of more than 6,800 of these disorders. Unfortunately, only 5% have a current available treatment. In the last decade, we have seen great progress in the research and diagnosis of rare and low prevalence diseases and identifying the molecular causes of them. Since the implementation of genomic sequencing technologies in 2010, such as exome and genome sequencing, we have seen an increase in the number of new genes discovered associated to genetic diseases. This, in turn, provides opportunities for accurate molecular diagnosis for patients with these conditions. We tried to summarize all of this progress in the last decades through this book, Genomics of Rare Diseases. In Mexico, in 2022, we launched a Rare and Undiagnosed Diseases Genomic Sequencing Research Program. This program receives patients and families with suspected genetic disorders that have been referred and evaluated by medical geneticists, part of the Mexican Network for Rare Diseases. We perform trio genomic sequencing, exome sequencing in collaboration with partners, and we perform analysis and follow-up at the International Laboratory for Human Genome Research. And we also have capabilities for in vitro and in vivo functional modeling studies. Of the patients that we have recruited since January 2022, 30% of them have a diagnosis based on variants, known or novel, identified in known disease-associated genes, while 40% have novel candidate genes. We also launched in February of 2022 the Rare Disease Patient Registry, and we also have activities for education, training, and outreach in Spanish for Mexican and Latin American audiences, including our annual International Rare Disease Day Symposium. Some of the data that we have collected to date as part of the Mexican Rare Disease Patient Registry include this observation that for a great part of the patients that have filled in the questionnaire of our study, 71.53% of the patients report that at some point in their diagnostic odyssey, a physician had mentioned to them that their disease could be genetic. However, only 39.5% of patients were referred to a geneticist, only 27.7% had some molecular testing performed, and only 17.36% have currently a definitive molecular diagnosis for their condition. Also, only 14 patients of the ones that filled in the questionnaire report having had exome sequencing to identify the genetic cause of their disease. Most of the patients report that the cost of these tests was very high or high, and also that in most cases, they had to pay out of pocket the cost of these testing because this is not covered by the Mexican healthcare system. In one case, the cost was also high, but it was covered by private insurance, and one other case was sequenced as part of research. In addition to our efforts in Mexico, through the Mexican Network for Rare Diseases, in 2020, we also, as part of a community of researchers, clinicians, and patients interested in advancing the objectives to improve the lives of many patients with rare diseases in Latin America, we started a regional Latin American initiative under the name of ERCO, and in 2024, this changed to CEPCAL, the Colaborativa para Enfermedades Poco Frecuentes en el Caribe y América Latina, with the vision from the beginning to unite some and consolidate the efforts of all the different stakeholders in Latin America to improve the lives of patients and families living with rare diseases and low prevalence diseases in our region. This year, in February 26, very close to Rare Disease Day, we had the publication of one of our initial articles describing our perspective, our history, and also our objectives and how we're working to improve the different aspects of rare diseases in Latin America and the Caribbean, advance the agenda throughout the region, and get better conditions for patients living with these conditions in Latin America. Very briefly, CEPCAL works through different working groups, 8 working groups that span the different themes that are important for advancing the rare disease agenda in Latin America, including legislation and regulation for rare diseases in the region, collaborative and research networks, access and implementation of molecular diagnostic technologies, access and implementation of information and digital technologies, access to integral care and implementation of centers of excellence for rare diseases, access to clinical trials, therapies, and treatments, education, outreach, and training, and diversity, equity, and representation of indigenous and vulnerable populations in Latin America and the Caribbean. We are celebrating our 2nd Congress on Rare and Low Prevalence Diseases in the Caribbean and Latin America this coming October in Mexico City. So I hope to see you, many of you there in Mexico City. And just to finalize, so these efforts in Mexico are part of national, regional, and international collaborations that we have established to improve the diagnosis, research, education, and training pertaining to rare and low prevalence diseases in Latin America and the diagnostic offices of millions of patients in the region living with these conditions. And with that, I want to thank all the people involved in these projects and these initiatives and collaborations. And I'm happy to be here with you as part of the Undiagnosed Disease Day. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ann Nordgren and I am a professor in clinical genetics from Stockholm, from Karolinska Institute, and I'm happy that you have asked me to talk about the hackathon, the Undiagnosed Hackathon. So everything with the hackathon started during a dinner at the UDNI meeting in Vienna in November 2022. That's when Helene Cederroth from the Wilhelm Foundation came to me and said, "Ann, can you host a hackathon at Karolinska?" And I said, "Of course I can. But Helene, what is a hackathon?" And then Orion who is CTO from Phenotypes, came and he said, "A hackathon is a marathon for hackers. I can help." So that's when we decided to have a hackathon in Stockholm. So the hackathon was held in June 2023 and co-hosted by Wilhelm Foundation, Phenotypes, and the Karolinska Undiagnosed Diseases Program, with part from the Karolinska Institute and also Karolinska University Hospital. So why did we choose to have a hackathon for the undiagnosed? Well, it is because 60% of all patients with rare diseases that undergo massive parallel sequencing are still undiagnosed. So we have to do more in order to diagnose more people. We have to collaborate. We need better tools to evaluate genetic data. We need multi-omics analysis and better platforms. We need streamlined functional studies. We need phenotyping tools. And we need also novel data sharing approaches in order to achieve this. We choose to have an invitation-only model where we invited 100 experts from 28 countries, and we asked those experts to select patients that we could discuss at the hackathon. And the experts selected 11 undiagnosed patients, or rather families, from 8 countries, from the United States to Europe to Africa to Turkey, India, China. And it was really, really nice, this, and but also a logistic challenge, since we needed to get informed consents for all the patients and also blood samples, and our colleagues had to collect phenotypes, and then we performed sequencing at Karolinska and in Uppsala, Sweden, and this created large data sets. So we even had to have our own server at KI, and we had to affiliate people to Karolinska. We also had to open a special line to get access to a fast internet during the event, and there were lots of things we had to think about with safety. Helene and Mick Cederroth were working with other parts, like the travel visa for participants, accommodation, food, hotels, and also to take care of the families during the hackathon, and journalists as well. And what we did with those 11 families and the blood samples is that we performed whole genome trio sequencing, long-read singleton sequencing, and epic arrays. We also performed short-read RNA-seq and long-read RNA-seq, and we used a standardized phenotyping tool called tip-to-toe to get the standardized phenotype. And all with a goal to try to find the diagnosis in these patients in order to be able to if possible, offer them personalized medicine and improve their quality of life. So when all the participants arrived, Wilhelm Foundation had really arranged a top-tier venue. We had wonderful meals and arrangements all throughout the hackathon. And the first night we went on a boat trip in the Swedish archipelago, and all the participants were divided into working groups, and they were divided into unicorns and smileys and dinosaurs, space and animals. Very nice when everyone arrived to Karolinska. And the best of all was also that the families and the patients, they were there. We got to meet them. Everyone got to meet them, and also their siblings. So that was really very important, I would say, for the whole event, that we could meet the patients. And if we had questions, we were able to discuss with them. They came back. We could look at the children. So the experts were divided in teams, and then the patients were divided in those teams. And like here you can see the smiley team working on this little girl. And while the experts were working, the families and patients went to an amusement park in Stockholm. The event brought a lot of attention there, and there were several journalists there, and we were even on the Swedish news on television. Everyone had to work very hard during the hackathon, but Wilhelm Foundation, they really made sure that we had enough of energy all the time. We got beautiful Swedish cakes and buns and candies and energy drinks. And it was just wonderful to see how the teamwork erased the borders between all the people involved, and also to see the highly ranked scientists, how they had to return to the bench and do diagnostics themselves. This was very motivating. At the end of this 48-hour collaborative effort, we had been able to diagnose 4 patients. But the work was not ended there. It went on for 3 more months, where data was available to everyone. After 3 months, several of the participants from the hackathon met at the UDNI conference in Georgia and discussed, and at that time point there were still 4 patients that were solved, but we are working on candidate genes, and hopefully some more of these patients will be solved in the future. So to summarize, I would really like to thank everyone who contributed, especially Helene and Mick, who organized so much of the event, and also Orion for being such a great leader of the hackathon, and also my own research group and everyone at Karolinska, and all the participants and the funders, but most of all the patients. And also I am really looking forward to the next hackathon, because it has been decided that there will be a new hackathon in Nijmegen in June this year. Thank you. And in the end, I would like to show a movie that the Wilhelm Foundation made from the hackathon. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Wendy van Zelst. I'm a clinical geneticist and professor care for rare at the Radboud University, Nijmegen, the Netherlands. I'm happy to join you all today on Undiagnosed Day. For over a decade, I have been involved in the Undiagnosed Diseases Network International, which have resulted in participation of the Undiagnosed Photo Project initiative of the Wilhelm Foundation, as shown on the left photo, and we hosted the 8th International Conference on Rare and Undiagnosed Diseases in 2020. I'm sure I do not have to explain to this audience how important it is to have a diagnosis, as it is the actual start of a good care pathway related to the management and, in most cases, future treatment options. Next to that, it will provide possibilities to get in contact with other patients. In Nijmegen, we focus on 3 topics to improve the quality of care for patients with rare diseases: early diagnosis, insight in disease mechanisms, with therapy development and prevention. At the Department of Human Genetics, we contribute to all 3 topics. We have a very innovative diagnostic division, for instance, with a focus on the implementation of new DNA technologies in daily clinical practice as soon as possible. We are currently researching the value of long-read genome sequencing in patients without a diagnosis after extensive genetic testing. Next to the implementation of new DNA technologies, we try to shorten the diagnostic odyssey of patients with rare diseases with DNA-first strategies. We aim to have the genetic test as a first-tier diagnostic test after visiting a medical specialist, or even before the patient is seen by a medical specialist. Our first results for patients with a neurodevelopmental disorder are very successful and have shortened the care pathway within the Radboud University Medical Center itself by a year already. We are very proud to host the second Undiagnosed Hackathon this year after the successful first edition in Stockholm last year, initiated by the Wilhelm Foundation. This year's Undiagnosed Hackathon will be held on June 7 to 8 at the Radboud University Medical Center to Nijmegen. Professionals with different backgrounds like AI, bioinformatics, clinical genetics, data analytics, and so on will try to come to a diagnosis for undiagnosed patients. We will reanalyze exome and/or genome data from 45 patients from all over the world. For 25 patients, we generated new data with the most optimal and new technologies, like long-read genome sequencing and optical genome mapping. The professionals will bend over these new generated data in 5 groups during the hackathon, hence the coat of armor designed last year. We will proudly present the outcome of this hackathon on next year's Undiagnosed Day. I can then hopefully tell you that for several patients involved in the photo project, as shown on the first slide, we were able to get a diagnosis. We can then show you a Nijmegen picture like this one, and hope that it will even be a more successful edition than the first one. Thank you very much for your attention and also for your contribution to this very important group of patients.